If you're feeling lost in life right now, like you have no idea what you're doing or what goals you should aim for, well, you're not alone. A few years ago, I felt the exact same way. I was stuck in jobs I hated. My daily routine became so mundane and boring. I would avoid people because I had social anxiety. I constantly doubted myself. I had no direction, and I spent most of my days just numbing myself out with distractions. But everything changed when I decided to take control of my life. Since then, I've done things like running a marathon. I sold everything I owned and moved to a different country. I started building my own business, and for the first time in my life, I feel really clear on what I want and where I'm heading. And so in this video, I'm going to share with you 3 practical steps to help you gain that same clarity so that you can create your own meaningful goals and finally feel like your life has some direction. But before we get into these steps, I just want to say that the truth is nobody knows what they're doing. Seriously, most people are just figuring things out as they go, and I think it's easy to compare ourselves online and look at other people, and we start to think that we're behind in life, and we start to think that they have everything together. But I promise you, they're not. Everyone is making it up as they go. Some days I'm like, what am I doing? I'm like, who even am I? Life can be painfully confusing sometimes, and the steps I'm about to share have made a big difference in my life, and so I genuinely believe that they can work for you too. But of course, everybody's journey is different, so take what works and leave the rest. So step number 1 is make time for reflection and let your mind wander. Before you can gain clarity around your goals or direction, you first need to create the time and space to reconnect with yourself. We live in a world with constant noise. We have social media, we have notifications, Netflix, our friends, our family, our jobs, and all of this external input can really drown out your own internal voice if you don't take the time to step back. Many of us are also heavily influenced by what we see online and by the expectations of other people. And so if you want to figure out what you truly want, you need to take the time to be alone with your thoughts and without any distractions. And don't worry if clarity doesn't come to you straight away, it probably won't. This process can take some time, but what matters most is that you are creating the conditions for clarity to emerge. And it will when the time is right. But more importantly, as you take the time to reconnect with yourself, it's just as crucial to give yourself permission to explore beyond what currently feels possible. And this is because many of us carry limiting beliefs, which are basically assumptions that we have picked up over time of things that we believe that we can't or can do. These beliefs can shrink our vision before we even give ourselves the chance to imagine what we truly want. They tend to make us think small and hold us back from reaching for something bigger. So to explain what I mean, I'm going to give you an example of a few of my past limiting beliefs. But I used to have extreme social anxiety and I hated talking to people. I avoided social situations. I would skip school sometimes. The thought of going to a party made me feel sick. I hated even speaking to the waiter to order my food, and I had this constant belief that people were going to laugh at me or I was going to embarrass myself. But there came a very painful turning point in my life where I was just suffering so much because of my social anxiety, and I realized that if I don't do anything about it, I'm gonna live a very lonely and miserable life. And so that's when I started to challenge this belief and push back against that fear. And step by step, as I put myself out there more and more, I realized that this belief wasn't true. I started taking new jobs and meeting new people, and I realized that no one really cared about me in a very freeing way. Everyone is just too busy focused on their own lives. And so I started to clearly see that this belief wasn't reality, but it was a limitation that I created in my own mind. Another limiting belief that I had was that I would never be able to run a marathon, and I remember the exact moment when I spotted that this was a limiting belief. I was working at my 9-to-5 job in Manchester in the UK, and the Manchester Marathon had just been that weekend, and so everyone in work was talking about it. And I was talking to my colleagues, and I remember saying, oh my god, I can never run a marathon. That is insane. And just as I said that out loud, I turned around to go on my laptop to start work, and then I paused, and I was like, that's strange. My mind is telling me that I can't do something. I was thinking, is this thought true? And then I thought back to all my other beliefs that haven't held to be true, and I thought, maybe this is just another one. And then I was like, well, now I have to test it. So I started signing up to races. I did a few half marathons. And then the next year I was running in the Manchester Marathon, the one that I said I couldn't do. And I finished with a time I was so proud of. Another limiting belief that I had is that I would never be able to get enough money to leave the UK. And yet here I am 2 years later living in beautiful Greece because I decided to challenge it. And so you get the point, right? I'm sharing these examples with you to show you that many of us get these thoughts in our head that we just accept as true, and in doing so we limit ourselves from even trying to challenge them. Like, let's just imagine how different my life would look if I had just accepted those beliefs to be true. I'd probably still be stuck in my room with social anxiety, avoiding the world, feeling depressed. I'd probably still be working in a job I hated, living in the UK, feeling like there's no way out. I would have never tested my fitness capabilities and shown myself what is possible, and instead I would have just accepted that version of reality without ever trying to change it. And so when you are taking the time to reflect and connect to yourself, I encourage you to let your mind wander beyond what you believe is currently possible and ask yourself, if I had no limitations in my life, what would I want my life to look like? And break it down into areas, for example, relationships, health, finance, career. Who would you want to become if nothing was holding you back? And that vision that you start to see in your mind is a clear indicator of what you truly want. Stop shutting yourself down with thoughts like, I could never do that, or that's not possible. And instead, give yourself the permission to imagine freely, without judgments, without limitations. The first step to creating a purposeful life is giving your mind the space to imagine the vision of what you truly want. Now, the second step to gain clarity on your goals is to just start somewhere. There are some things in life that you simply cannot figure out by thinking alone. No amount of overthinking or planning will give you the clarity that real experience brings. Instead, you need to go out into the world and do something. Take action, try new things, explore, make mistakes, learn. Clarity often comes after movement, not before it. And I think many people have fallen into the trap of living in a very mundane routine. They wake up, they scroll on their phone, they go to work, they come back home, they watch TV, potter around the house, then they go to bed, and then they just repeat that routine. And they're wondering what they should do with their lives, or feel like they have no purpose, but yet they're not experiencing anything different or new in order to bring them that clarity. The truth is, clarity isn't going to just land on your lap. You have to go out and find it. Right now, I feel a strong sense of what I want in my life and where I'm heading, but that clarity didn't come from me just sitting down thinking about things. It came from real life experiences, from me putting myself in uncomfortable situations, from me failing, from me making mistakes, testing different paths and seeing what didn't work. For example, I'll share with you 2 quick stories. But back in February 2022, I was working as a receptionist in a law firm, and I only worked there for 8 months because I didn't really like it. But one day a friend called me, and he was staying on a farm in Greece, and he said that there was some work opportunities out there doing some like video editing and stuff. And so I was like, okay. So I just said to myself, okay, I'm gonna quit my job and take the risk because I don't even like my job anyway, so what have I got to lose? And so I went to stay on this farm in the middle of nowhere in Greece for 6 weeks. And let me tell you something, it was not what I had planned. I went here thinking, I'm a nature girly. I was like, yeah, I like nature. I'm like so like at one with the earth. But I very quickly discovered that that was not what was in store for me. So let me just paint the scene for you really quickly. But there was this bucket, which was the toilet, and you just had to squat in it and then put some hay on it afterwards, after you're done with your little business. There was no transport anywhere nearby. There was snakes. I kept seeing them on the floor in the morning time. There was big ones, there was small ones, and I had ticks crawling up me constantly. If you don't know what a tick is, they're like these tiny little bugs that can give you Lyme disease. And apparently the ones here in Greece aren't that dangerous, but I didn't care. They were literally crawling up on my ear every day. They were everywhere. I was sleeping in a tent in the peak of summer, so it was so uncomfortable. I was like constantly sweating. There was flies constantly on your food, and the job that I had originally gone there for just completely fell through. And it was so out of my comfort zone, but I forced myself to stay. And 6 weeks later, when I came back to the UK, I started to panic and stress because I had no job and I had to pay my rent for that month because I still had my flat. And so I burned through all of my savings to pay for that month's rent, I started to apply to any job I could find, and then I eventually started working at Starbucks. And so was this whole experience a success? Definitely not. I ended up being really stressed about finding another job. I burnt through my savings, and when I started working at Starbucks, I was earning less than I was before. But did I regret the decision to leave my job and go to the farm? Absolutely not. And the reason being is because I learned so much about myself. I learned how resilient I am, and that even when things went wrong, I still picked myself back up every time. I learned about a different way of living, and even though I discovered that it wasn't for me, I still learned a lot about farming, and I was able to experience a whole different lifestyle. Staying on the farm also really increased my confidence because there was like 10 other people there from different countries, and so I really got to put myself out there and speak to different people. I learned from my mistake of quitting my job without really thinking about it and having to burn through my savings. I learned that I am someone who values financial security. That's really important for me to feel safe. And so I learned the hard way to not do that again and take the risk without a blanket of financial security. And so even though this experience wasn't a success, it taught me a lot about myself and enabled me to think differently. Another quick story I'll share is that in 2023, me and my best friend, we opened up a business together, and it was basically helping wellness businesses with their social media accounts. So we were doing like photo shoots, some videography, like editing their reels and shorts on YouTube, Instagram. And at the time, I thought that this was something I would like to do because I'm creative and I'm into wellness and health. And I was working on this business whilst I was working a 9-to-5 job Monday to Friday in the city. And you know, we made a couple of hundred here or there, but I started to realize that I really wasn't enjoying it. As time went on, I became more and more stressed because I just felt like I was working all the time. And I realized that I like to be creative, but with my own concepts. It didn't feel fulfilling doing something creative for someone else. And so 9 months into this business together, I ended up quitting. And that was a really hard decision to make because I'd spent so much time and energy on it. All my weekends were going to these projects, and I was in this business with my best friend, so I didn't want to let her down. But I realized that it wasn't making me happy and it wasn't what I wanted to do. And so do I regret starting the business? No, because I learned so much about myself through that experience. I learned that people were willing to pay me for creative work. I developed more of a business mindset, and I learned the procedure to what you have to do to start your own business. And I learned that I don't like doing creative work for other people because it doesn't fulfill me. And so every experience in life, good or bad, teaches us something. There's always a lesson to be learned, and often those lessons are needed in order to then gain clarity for your next step. Getting clarity on what you don't want or what you don't like is incredibly valuable because then it means you can pivot in a different direction. The thing is, people are so scared to fail and they tell themselves, oh, but what if this happens? What if I don't like it? What if it goes wrong? And it's like you're never gonna know unless you try. You have to be willing to step out into the unknown and test things out. Wouldn't you rather spend a bit of time figuring things out and getting things wrong rather than spending your whole life stuck? Just wondering, what if this, what if that, and never finding out the answers. Honestly, that scares me way more. Clarity is not going to come to you if you're not willing to put yourself out there. Let's use a quick analogy to explain this, but let's imagine that there's a mountain, and on the top of the mountain is your direction, it's your goals, it's your clarity that you want to find. And right now, you're sitting at the bottom of the mountain, and you're thinking about what is on the top. Do you think that's going to help you find your answer? Of course not. Instead, you need to start putting one foot in front of the other and start making your way up the mountain. Even if you don't know the best route to the top right now, you just need to start moving. And as you walk through the path, you probably will encounter some barriers. Maybe there'll be a puddle that you have to jump over. Maybe there'll be a tree that's in your way. And so maybe you'll have to adapt or turn back or go in a different direction. But all of that is a necessary part of your journey in order to get to your destination. And so go out and experience life. Do something that intrigues you. Start a side hustle. Sign up to your local club. Sign up to a challenge that feels so far out of your comfort zone, like running a marathon, and just learn about yourself through the process. You have to be willing to step out into uncertainty and be willing to make mistakes. Every experience is a lesson, and it's going to teach you something. I just wanted to quickly let you know that if you are someone who is struggling to build up better habits, then click the top link in the video description to join the free 30-day discipline challenge course and community. in which you'll get access to resources, videos, tips, and you'll be added to a private community with like-minded people who are also working on themselves and will help to motivate you and keep you accountable. I hope to see you in there. Now, the third step to gaining clarity is self-education. If you're feeling lost in life and you're not sure what to do, a great place to start putting your energy is into fixing your current life problems. And I say this because many of the current challenges that we are facing are actually weighing us down and taking up a lot of our mental space without us even realizing it. For example, let's take someone who has poor health. So let's say that their diet is really bad and they have a very sedentary lifestyle. Well, a good first step for them would to just be focused on restoring their health. If they were to focus on getting better nutrition and maybe moving their body more, going for walks, in time, they're going to start to feel better. Their mood will start to lift, their energy will feel better, the brain fog will start to clear, and with this shift, they now will gain a different perspective on life. And this new clarity can now guide them towards their next chapter. A lot of the problems that we avoid facing, for example, maybe we're overweight or unhealthy, maybe we have social anxiety, maybe we have money issues, maybe we're in a toxic relationship, maybe we have a phone addiction, or we feel like we're lacking friends. Well, these problems, they pull us down into a very low quality state of being, and they drain our energy. And when our energy is being constantly drained, it's really hard to find clarity or direction because our mind and energy is being preoccupied with these other things. And so when you start improving some of these areas, you will now create space for new possibilities. Space that was once blocked up in your mind because it was being tied to those struggles. And so like I mentioned earlier with the mountain analogy, sometimes you need to put one foot in front of the other for the rest of the path to then become clearer. And so to figure out how to solve your problems, you need to self-educate. I promise you, whatever challenge you are facing, someone else has been through the same thing. And now they are sharing their wisdom of how they overcame it, and so you can learn from them. We literally live in the age of free, abundant information. There has never been a better time than now to find solutions to your problems. And honestly, this is how I've solved all of my problems and challenges in life. I cured my social anxiety by reading books and applying the strategies. I broke my phone addiction through what I learned from books and videos. I've learned how to build up better habits through books and podcasts. I learned how to stop letting fear hold me back. I learned how to eat better. I learned how to have a consistent exercise routine. I learned how to try and build your own business. I wouldn't be where I am today if I didn't take the time to self-educate. Everything I've become is because I took the time to learn from others who have walked down the path that I want to walk down. And so take the time to educate yourself on your own problems, whether it's money issues, relationship issues, health issues. Find someone who has solved your problem and learn from them. As you improve these areas, I guarantee things will start to become clearer for you in the future. Click here to discover my 5-step method to building up a disciplined life, and I hope this video helped you in some way. All the best to you.